The room was designed to intimidate without ever admitting it. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine reflected the glow of chandeliers heavy with crystal, each light scattering like frozen rain. Conversations overlapped in low, confident tones, the kind of voices shaped by boardrooms and private jets. Men in tailored suits stood in practiced clusters, laughing at jokes that carried the faint scent of money. Women in elegant dresses moved through the space with controlled grace, careful not to step outside the invisible lines of status that defined the evening. She stood just inside those lines, close enough to be seen but far enough to be ignored. Her dress was black, simple, and unbranded. It didn't sparkle. It didn't beg for attention. It fit her like confidence did, quietly, without effort. Her hair was pulled back neatly, not severe, not dramatic. She carried herself with a stillness that made her easy to overlook in a room addicted to excess. In her hand was a glass of water. No champagne. No wine. She had learned long ago that clear minds observed more than they revealed. She wasn't alone, but she wasn't included either. That was familiar territory. She listened as conversations drifted past her: stock valuations, acquisitions, a new luxury tower in Dubai, a political deal whispered just loudly enough to sound impressive. Languages floated through the air like fragments of another world. English dominated, sharp and confident, but beneath it were traces of French, Italian, Mandarin, Arabic, spoken carelessly, imperfectly, often incorrectly, by people who assumed no one would notice. She noticed everything. A woman beside her turned slightly, polite curiosity flickering across her face. "First time at one of these?" she asked. She smiled, soft but assured. "Not my first. Just my quietest." The woman chuckled. "What brings you here?" "I work with languages," she replied. It was an honest answer. Simple. Unarmed. Unfortunately, it was overheard. A loud laugh cut through the background hum like a crack of thunder. It wasn't warm or amused, it was sharp, deliberate, meant to be heard. The sound came from a man standing only a few steps away, surrounded by an orbit of admirers. His suit was custom cut, his watch worth more than most people's cars. His presence bent the room toward him without effort. The billionaire turned, eyes scanning her quickly, the way one assesses furniture or art, calculating value before interest. His smile held no kindness, only entertainment. "Languages," he repeated. "That's vague." She met his gaze without flinching. "It's a broad field." "How many do you speak?" he asked, already smirking, already enjoying whatever answer he expected. "9," she said calmly. Fluently. The laughter exploded, louder this time, intentional, echoing off the marble and crystal. Conversations nearby stalled as heads turned. People pretended not to stare while staring anyway. "9," he repeated, savoring the word as if it were ridiculous. "That's ambitious." "It's accurate," she said. He shook his head, amused. "I've funded universities. I've hired translators with doctorates who struggled to keep up with 3. "That's unfortunate," she replied evenly. A ripple of awkward energy passed through the small crowd now forming around them. Someone cleared their throat. Another smiled too tightly. The billionaire leaned back slightly, crossing his arms. "This isn't an audition," he said. "You don't need to impress anyone here." "I'm not trying to," she answered. His smile sharpened. "Then why lie?" The word hung in the air, heavy and unmistakable. She felt the weight of the room shift. This was the moment people waited for, the moment she would retreat, apologize, dissolve back into invisibility. That was the script. That was always the script. She didn't follow it. Instead, she took a slow breath and placed her glass of water on the nearest table. The small sound of glass touching marble was oddly loud. Intentional. "I'm not lying," she said. "And I don't perform for free." A few eyebrows lifted. Someone murmured. The billionaire laughed again, but this time there was something thinner in it. "Confident too. That's charming." "Confidence isn't charm," she replied. "It's preparation." He tilted his head. Then prepare. She studied him for a moment, not his suit, not his watch, but the way his jaw tightened when challenged, the way his eyes darted briefly to the people watching. Men like him thrived on dominance. They crumbled when control slipped. Choose a language, she said. The crowd froze. The billionaire blinked, surprised. Then his grin returned, broader now, delighted. Oh, this is good. A diplomat nearby shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered that this was unnecessary. Another quietly reached for their phone. French, he said easily. Everyone claims French. She didn't pause. Her response flowed smooth and precise, her accent natural, Parisian, not the forced elegance of someone who had memorized phrases, but the lived rhythm of someone who had argued, laughed, and negotiated in it. She spoke for only a few seconds, but it was enough. The diplomat stiffened, eyes widening. The billionaire's smile faltered, just slightly. Lucky, he said quickly. German. She transitioned without hesitation. Her tone shifted, structure tightening, consonants crisp. She referenced a cultural nuance that made a man at the edge of the circle inhale sharply. A murmur passed through the room. Spanish, the billionaire said faster now. Her voice softened, warmth entering her cadence. It sounded like home, like sunlit streets and late conversations. Someone near the back nodded unconsciously. The billionaire dropped his arms. That doesn't prove anything, he said. Memorization is cheap. Then choose again, she replied. For the first time, he hesitated. The silence stretched, thin and electric. Mandarin, he said finally, voice edged with challenge. No one fakes Mandarin. She smiled, not triumphantly, not defensively, but knowingly. And as she began to speak, the room leaned in. Not because they wanted her to fail, but because something had already shifted, and no one was quite sure who held power anymore. The first syllable left her mouth, and the room changed its posture. It wasn't dramatic, not loud, but precise, each tone landing cleanly, each inflection controlled. Mandarin flowed from her effortlessly, not stiff or rehearsed, but alive. She didn't just speak it, she navigated it. When she paused, a man near the back who had been quietly confident until now lowered his glass, eyes wide with recognition. That idiom, he said under his breath. That's Northern. She answered him without looking, correcting his regional reference with a softness that somehow made it more devastating. A few people laughed, nervous and impressed all at once. The billionaire's smile had disappeared. He cleared his throat. Anyone can study, he said, louder than necessary. That doesn't make you special. I didn't say it did, she replied. He stepped closer now, invading her space just enough to reassert dominance. The people around them instinctively shifted back, forming a tighter circle. This was no longer entertainment. This was a contest. You think this proves something? He asked. In a room like this? I think it already has, she said. A woman near the edge whispered. He's embarrassed. The billionaire heard it. His jaw tightened. Fine, he said. Arabic. She responded immediately, her pronunciation clean and respectful, her cadence balanced. She referenced a phrase used in formal negotiations, not casual conversation. A businessman from Dubai straightened, eyes narrowing with interest. That's not textbook, he said quietly. The billionaire swallowed. Russian, someone else said suddenly, not him. The challenge came from the crowd now. She nodded once and answered, consonants sharp, rhythm exact. She spoke just long enough to leave no doubt. The room buzzed. Phones were out now. Not obviously, but discreetly. People wanted proof of what they were witnessing. This was becoming something else. Something viral. The billionaire raised a hand. Enough. But the word didn't carry authority anymore. He looked around, realizing too late that the crowd was no longer on his side. This wasn't his stage now. It was hers. Why are you doing this? He asked, voice low, edged with irritation. Do you enjoy humiliating people? I'm not humiliating anyone, she said. I answered questions. He laughed brittle. Don't pretend this isn't a performance. She met his eyes. You asked for one? A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. He turned to the crowd, trying to reclaim them. Do you know how many people lie their way into rooms like this? He said. Confidence without credentials is dangerous. Credentials? She echoed softly. Yes, he said, seizing the word. Degrees. Institutions. Recognition. And who gives those? She asked. He frowned. What? Who decides which languages matter? She continued. Who decides which accents are acceptable? Which voices sound intelligent? No one answered. He scoffed. Now you're making it political. She smiled faintly. It always was. The tension thickened, heavy and uncomfortable. People shifted their weight. Someone tried to laugh it off but stopped halfway through. The billionaire leaned in again. You think knowing words gives you power? He asked. She leaned in just enough to match him. Words shape contracts, she said. They end wars. They start them. They decide who gets heard. A silence followed, one that felt less like anticipation and more like reckoning. Then answer this, he said suddenly. Why 9? Why not 10? Or 12? The question wasn't curiosity. It was bait. She didn't rush her response. My mother cleaned offices at night, she said. Places like this. Men like you talked freely when they thought no one understood. A few people inhaled sharply. She didn't interrupt. She continued. She listened. She memorized. She taught me that language is survival before it's prestige. The billionaire shifted uncomfortably. She told me never to correct people who underestimate you, she added. Let them finish. Someone laughed softly. He straightened. That's a nice story. It's a true one. And what? He asked, voice tightening. Are you trying to prove tonight? She looked around the circle, at the faces that had gone from amused to attentive to unsettled. That brilliance isn't loud, she said. And ignorance often is. A beat passed. The billionaire's smile returned, but it was forced now. You're enjoying this. No, she said honestly. I'm enduring it. That answer hit harder than any language. He exhaled, trying to reset. Fine, he said. One last test. A ripple of anticipation surged through the room. Go ahead, she said. He hesitated again. The pause was noticeable now. Damaging. English, he said finally. Let's hear your English. A few people frowned. That felt desperate. She didn't speak right away. Instead, she studied him with quiet intensity. English, she said slowly, is the language you use to sound superior. A nervous chuckle spread. It's also the one people hide behind when they don't want to listen. She spoke then, not theatrically, not loudly, but with clarity and depth. She articulated ideas, not vocabulary. She referenced history, power dynamics, the cost of miscommunication. Her words weren't impressive because of how they sounded, but because of what they exposed. By the time she finished, no one was smiling. The billionaire opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time since he had entered the room, he had nothing ready. Someone near the back spoke up. Who are you? She turned toward the voice. Before she could answer, a woman in a tailored suit approached quickly, tablet in hand, eyes fixed on her with urgency. There you are, the woman said. We've been looking for you. The billionaire stiffened. The woman glanced at him briefly, then back at her. They're asking for you upstairs. The schedule changed. The room leaned forward. What schedule? The billionaire asked sharply. The woman hesitated, just enough. The arbitration panel, she said. The one tomorrow morning. A hush fell. The billionaire's face strained of color. Because suddenly, this wasn't about languages anymore. And everyone in the room knew it. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything spoken so far. It pressed against the walls, settled into the chandeliers, crept into every held breath. The word arbitration lingered in the air like a verdict waiting to be read. The woman with the tablet looked around, sensing the shift, then lowered her voice. "They need you now," she said, urgency threaded through professionalism. The preliminary discussion was moved up. A few people exchanged glances. Others stared openly now, no longer pretending disinterest. The billionaire remained frozen, his confidence evaporating as the implications caught up with him. He had funded think tanks. He had crushed competitors. He had survived scandals with a smile and a press release. But this was different. This was control slipping away in public. "Arbitration?" someone whispered. "For the Meridian deal?" The woman nodded. "International. Multilingual. High stakes." Eyes snapped back to her. The billionaire finally found his voice. "Wait," he said sharply. "This is some kind of misunderstanding." She turned to him slowly. "Is it?" He forced a laugh. "You don't honestly expect us to believe?" "I don't expect anything," she said. "I prepare." The word landed clean and final. The woman with the tablet glanced between them, confusion flickering. "Do you know each other?" "No," she replied. "Not yet," the billionaire muttered. A diplomat stepped forward cautiously. "You're the lead linguistic advisor?" "And chief interpreter," she added. A murmur rolled through the crowd, louder now. The billionaire's company logo flashed in his mind, tied to contracts written in multiple languages, clauses that could be bent or broken by a single mistranslated word. He knew the importance of interpreters. He had exploited it before. He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "Listen," he said. "Let's reset. No need to turn this into something bigger than it is." She looked at him, expression calm, almost curious. "You already did." He clenched his jaw. "You embarrass me." "You embarrass yourself," she corrected. "I answered questions." "That's not how power works," he snapped. She tilted her head slightly. "It is when power is borrowed." A ripple of approval moved through the room. Someone nodded. Someone else smiled openly now. The woman with the tablet cleared her throat. "We really should go." "In a moment," she said gently. The billionaire's eyes darted around. He saw it now, the way people were reassessing him, measuring him differently. He had been loud. She had been precise. And precision always won in the end. "You think this gives you leverage," he said quietly. "You think speaking well makes you untouchable. I think speaking truth makes lies fragile," she replied. A pause. "Why didn't you say who you were?" he demanded. She considered the question. "You didn't ask." Laughter rippled, soft, knowing. He exhaled sharply, then tried a different angle. "We're both professionals," he said. "There's no reason this has to be adversarial." "You made it adversarial when you laughed," she said. "I just stayed." The crowd leaned in again. This was no longer about spectacle. It was about reckoning. A man near the back spoke up. "Is it true you corrected a delegation last year? The one that nearly collapsed talks?" She nodded once. "They were about to sign something they didn't understand." "That cost someone billions," another voice said. She met that gaze calmly. "It saved someone else." The billionaire's face hardened. "So that's it," he said. "You're some moral crusader." She smiled faintly. "I'm an interpreter. I make sure people mean what they sign." The woman with the tablet shifted nervously. "We really are running out of time." She finally turned to go, but the billionaire stepped into her path, stopping just short of touching her. "You don't have to do this," he said. "You know what's at stake." "So do you," she replied. His voice dropped. "My company employs thousands and exploits language to protect itself," she said evenly. "I've read your contracts." A collective inhale swept the room. "You don't know that," he said. "I do," she replied. "In 7 languages." The billionaire laughed once, hollow. You think you're untouchable. She met his gaze, steady and unafraid. I think accountability doesn't care who you are. The woman with the tablet stepped forward again. Please. She nodded, finally. Let's go. As she turned, someone called out. Wait, what about the 9th language? She paused, glancing back over her shoulder. The one you didn't name. The person pressed. She looked at the billionaire, then back to the room. Listening, she said. Most people never learn it. She walked away, heels quiet against marble, posture unchanged. Conversations erupted behind her, not loud, but urgent, analytical. Deals were being reconsidered. Reputations recalculated. The billionaire stood alone in the center of it all, the room no longer bending toward him. He stared after her, realization dawning too late. Tomorrow, every word would matter. And she would be the one translating. Morning light spilled through glass walls high above the city, pale and unforgiving. It revealed everything: creases in suits, tired eyes, the tension that no amount of money could smooth away. The room was larger than the one the night before, but it felt smaller, compressed by consequence. Long tables formed a careful geometry meant to suggest balance. Translation booths lined the walls, silent for now, waiting. She arrived early. Not to make a statement, not to be seen, but because preparation had always been her quiet advantage. She reviewed documents one last time, fingertips brushing over printed clauses written in different alphabets, different legal traditions, different assumptions of power. Every word mattered. Every pause. Every inflection. When she stepped into the central position, the room adjusted itself around her without realizing it. Chairs shifted. Voices lowered. People who had dismissed her hours earlier now watched with a different kind of attention, alert, wary, respectful. The billionaire entered late. His confidence hadn't vanished, but it had thinned. It moved differently now, like armor worn after the first crack. He took his seat across the table, eyes flicking briefly in her direction before looking away. Pride demanded distance. Survival demanded focus. The proceedings began. Languages collided immediately, legal English tangled with formal Mandarin, softened by French, sharpened by German precision. Arguments rose and fell, polished and rehearsed. Representatives spoke with certainty, believing their words would land exactly as intended. They didn't. She listened. Not just to what was said, but to what was avoided. To the hesitation before certain phrases. To the subtle misuse of terms meant to blur responsibility. She caught inconsistencies instantly, flagged them calmly, translated them accurately, no embellishment, no mercy. A clause was read aloud. She paused. Please repeat the final sentence, she said. The speaker complied, irritation creeping in. She translated it again, slower this time, choosing clarity over comfort. The meaning shifted. Not drastically, but enough. Enough to expose intent. A murmur spread. That's not how we understood it. Someone objected. It's how it's written, she replied. In all versions. Eyes turned to the billionaire. His legal team shuffled papers, whispering urgently. He leaned forward, fingers steepled, jaw tight. This interpretation is aggressive, he said. It's precise, she answered. The distinction mattered. As the hours passed, the room transformed. What had once been a negotiation became an excavation. Safeguards once buried in footnotes surfaced. Obligations disguised as suggestions were dragged into light. Every attempt to soften language met her calm, unwavering accuracy. At one point, the billionaire interrupted. We're getting lost in semantics. She met his gaze. Semantics decide outcomes. The chairperson nodded. Silence followed, not awkward but decisive. By the time the final terms were revised, the balance had shifted completely. Protections were added. Ambiguities removed. Power redistributed, not by force, but by definition. The deal was signed. Not with celebration. With relief. When the room finally began to empty, conversations buzzed softly, respectful now. People approached her, not to challenge, not to test, but to think. To acknowledge. To ask questions she answered briefly, professionally. The billionaire lingered. Eventually, he stood and walked toward her, slower than before, steps measured. The room watched without pretending not to. "I owe you an apology," he said. The words were stiff, practiced, but they were there. She considered him for a moment, then nodded once. "You owe your employees honesty," she said. "Not me." He exhaled, something heavy leaving him. "You didn't have to dismantle me like that." "I didn't dismantle you," she replied. "I translated you." That landed harder than anger ever could. He hesitated. "What happens now?" "Now," she said, "you decide what kind of man you want your words to represent." She gathered her papers, movements unhurried. As she walked out, sunlight followed her, bright and unfiltered. The city stretched below, loud and alive, full of languages spoken and unheard. She stepped into it without spectacle, without announcement. Behind her, the billionaire remained standing, quieter than he had ever been, finally learning the cost of speaking without listening. And somewhere between the marble floors and the morning sky, a simple truth settled into the world, undeniable and permanent. Power isn't who speaks the loudest. It's who understands the most.